Hey guys, it's John here. I hope everyone had a nice weekend. Today is not going to be a shave. Today is going to be wet shaving photography 101. I'm going to explain how I go through my process of shooting my images that I put up online, and a bunch of you guys have asked me about it, so I figured I would put together a small video. So we're in my shooting den, as you can see behind me. And in photography, the most important thing is lighting. Lighting is everything. So yes, you can set up your shot and use an iPhone or any other phone and use an app on there and adjust everything in Photoshop. I like to try to do the majority of my work in the camera. So I'm going to explain to you in a short video, step by step, what I do, what my equipment is, how I set up my studio, and how I pick my shave gear. I like to pick my shave of the day based on, try to match up my equipment so that I have a razor and a brush and soaps and my little extras that I put in my images. I like them all to kind of coincide with the same contrast in image color. So what I do is I would, for example, tomorrow's shave of the day is going to be a new soap and aftershave that I got, and it's going to match up in the shave market, and I'm going to match it up with the aftershave. Okay, so now that I know what my shave is going to be, I need to match that up with a razor and a brush in my image. So I'm going to go to my equipment, and over here I'm going to pull out what I plan on using in my image. So I'm going to use my Scottish Razor Company straight razor. I'm going to match it up with the brush, and I'm going to use the box in my image to have something other than the product that I'm using to shave with. You might want to use a towel or your shave scuttle, or there's always something that incorporate into the image to make it more original. So this is what I'm going to do. Not to mention, in my image, I have a Barbicide bottle that's inside my tent. So let's talk about my tent. I have a 2 foot by 2 foot, 24 inch by 24 inch tent. I bought this. I'll put all the links below to all of my equipment that I used. This tent was, I think, $25 or $30. And what I used is I used some white plexiglass behind it and underneath it to have a reflection. I like to have reflections. Depending on my product, if my products are dark, I like to use a white background. If my products are light, I use a darker background. You could use anything as a background, and the idea is to make it look seamless. So the floor and the back have to end up being a seamless color. So you want to try to use gift wrapping paper, anything you like that you might have, poster board, whatever you want that is seamless is the best way to do this. So I'm going to move my camera out of the way for a moment. I'm going to put my box in there, and I don't need the business card because I don't want everybody seeing the business card. And then I will put the razor, and what I want to do is I want to strategically place this so that when you see this in the image, you end up seeing something that's very appealing to the eye, and you want to use what's called rule of thirds. So when you look in the camera, you make grid lines in your mind if you don't have them in your camera or on your phone. Those grid lines are going to be making 1, 2, 3 across, and 1, 2, 3 horizontal and vertical. These grid lines that you're going to have in your camera or in your mind, what they're going to do is they're going to let you put the object that you want most photographed, which would be the soap label, and I'm going to put that into a spot in the image where it's going to coincide with a horizontal and a vertical line. Whether it's at the top corner, the bottom corner, left or right is irrelevant. The rule of thirds is used to show where your eye will go to. Your eye, when you look at an image, that appeal goes right to a section that's called the rule of thirds. So that's where I'm going to do this. So I'm going to put this soap, I'm going to lean it in the front, and I'm going to put the label kind of like hanging like this, and I will show you the image at the end. And then I'm going to put the aftershave splash in the image also. Let's put that right here. And then I'm going to put the brush down so that you could see like, for example, this brush has a Shave Market logo on it. So I want to make sure that people could see that. So I'm going to figure a way to set this up so that logo shows, like so. So now what I'm looking at is I'm looking at rule of thirds. I want to make sure that my image has broken down to be the most appealing that it could be. And once I figured out and I've got that, you make adjustments however you like. So next thing, which is most important, is lighting. So what you want to do is, for me, I use the natural lighting that would be from the window. It happens to be not bright out, it's raining, so I've got overcast, which is going to be fairly decent. So I could use that and open a window, or I could use like what I use here. This is I bought this at Home Depot. It's a 7-inch or 8-inch circular reflector, and it usually has a floodlight in it, but I've changed it out and put a 5600 watt natural light bulb in it, so that when I shoot the image, it's going to have light as if it was natural sunlight. That's important when you're photographing. Try to make it look as natural as you can and alleviate shadows where you don't want them. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn this light on, and if I put this light on the side, I'm going to have side lighting. But for this particular one, I'm going to rest the light right on top, so that what I'm doing is I'm causing the light to come from above, which is called butterfly lighting, and it's going to alleviate the shadows and drop the shadows down in front. So the shadow is going to be in front of the objects instead of on the side of it or behind it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up my tripod. Now let me talk a little bit about my camera equipment. So I use a Sony a6000. This is the camera that I use. And I have a 18-105 lens on there. And what I do is I prefer to shoot everything in manual unless my camera is on my phone. If I'm using a phone camera, I don't have that option. But when I do have that option, I prefer to shoot my images in either RAW or manual mode. So I can make all the adjustments. One of the best things about shooting with a digital SLR or a mirrorless SLR is that you can stop down the image to use the minimal amount of light that you might have available and still be able to get an awesome shot with no grain in it by using a tripod. So that's what I do. So I'll set my camera on the tripod, and what I'll do is I'll turn my camera on. Okay, so what I've done is I've got my image set up based on my rule of thirds. I've adjusted the camera to have the proper amount of light needed to get this picture in the camera correct. By doing that, I'm shooting at a very, very slow shutter speed, and I can only do that if my camera is on a tripod so that there's no vibration, so that the camera won't shake. If your camera is going to shake in your hand, you'll get a blurry image. So if you're going to use a tent or do some kind of really nice photography for your images, you definitely want to slow down the shutter speed. So I'm shooting at f9 in the camera. The shutter speed that I'm using is 1/25th of a second, which is too slow to handhold. So you don't want to take a picture with such a slow shutter speed holding the camera in your hands. You want to have it on a tripod. The other thing that I have set is my ISO, and I keep my ISO at 200. I could jump it up to 800 or 1600, but then what happens is I get a lot of grain in the image, and I don't prefer that. I like a nice clear image. So to get that 5600K like natural light look, I need to shoot at a low ISO of 200. So I'm going to line my image up, and what I'll do is, before I take the picture, I always use my focus area. I adjust my focus to be on the actual item that I want to be most in focus, which is the Katie's Bubbles emblem. And then I'm going to let the camera do autofocus. I'm going to snap the picture, and then what I'm going to end up with is something that looks like this. Okay guys, so I've taken the image out of my camera and I've uploaded into Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, which is my 2015 version. It's available for any PC or Mac, so I highly suggest that if you're going to use editing programs, Lightroom is a very good one to start with. What I'll do here is, you could see the unedited image. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to take my cursor up to my histogram. Right up here at the top corner is the histogram, and that's how I define my image based on the histogram. As you could see, it's not in the whites and it's not in the blacks yet. So I'm going to go to whites, and I'm going to adjust the whites until I get a white, which I do. And now I'm going to adjust the blacks to bring the blacks in, which I've got that. Now I'm going to go to shadows, and I'm going to pull out some of the shadows. As you could see, I just removed a bunch of the shadow that was here, and because my light is a butterfly light, which is above shooting down, I've got this lower right here, this area, and over here is a very nice shadow effect, but it's not taking away from any of the information that's in the image. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my highlights, and I'm going to bring in the highlights a little, because I want to, and as I'm bringing in the highlights, I'm looking at the image to see if I need to take the shadows out a little bit more. That looks nice. I want the wood grain to show in the image. This is black felt, so you can't see that, but you could see the Katie's Bubbles emblem. You could see the Shave Market logo absolutely crystal clear. So this is a very nice start to the image. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look here, and I'm going to see on the sides it looks a little green. So I'm going to go here to my greens, which is right here. And that's aqua. This is green. And I'm going to desaturate a little bit of the greens until I start to see that's gone, which is perfect right there. So I've removed the saturation of the green, which could have been for any particular reason, especially when using a small studio like I have. Now, I'm not a big fan of the sharpening tool. I do not like to use that, but I will go to the noise reduction, luminance, and I will look at something that's got a lot of fine definition, pretty good. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of, just to reduce the noise a little bit. That's all I want to do, to smooth out the surface a little bit on the image. Now, the last thing I'm going to do in this section is I'm going to go here to clarity, and I use clarity instead of using the sharpening tool. And you'll see if I take clarity to one side, it kind of fuzzes out the image. And if I take it to the other extreme, it makes it hardcore looking vintage. So I'm going to go in the middle, and I'm going to go to about plus 30 or so, which is good. And that gives it a very nice definition. Next thing I'm going to do is go up to my cropping. I'm going to use my cropping tool, and I'm going to unlock it by touching on the lock and clicking on it, because I want to create the size of the image that I want. I want to give that image all of the space that I can at the bottom for the shadows, but I want to take it down from the top. And then I'm going to do the same from the sides. I'm going to bring this in just like this. Okay, so now you see all of this over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tool and I'm going to turn my image. So I turned the image, and now I'm going to bring this side in so that I get rid of that. And then I can bring this side up a little bit, like this. I'm going to bring this in a little because I don't need that whole thing. And that's what my image is going to look like. So I'm going to click done. And there's my close-up of my image. Now I'm going to scroll all the way down to the vignetting. And if you see, I go one way, I can darken this up. And by doing this, I'm making that image look a little more vintage. Okay, so now I've opened up my photo in Photoshop. And I'm going to make my final tweaks to my image. Like right here, this area that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to go here to my spot healing tool. I'm going to increase that a bit. And I'm going to get rid of that, just like so. I'm going to zoom in here. And this little area right there, I want to get rid of that, which I just did. And then I'm going to look around the image, make sure everything looks good. And if I see any spots on the image, this is the details that make your images great. Okay, this is the difference between a good image and a great image. And you want to make sure that you look through it and make any adjustments that you need to. You want to look through your image before you resize it for Facebook. So this looks pretty good. I don't see any major differences, so I'm going to go back to full size. That's going to be my finished image. And then I'm going to go to image size. Now you see it's 4000 by 3600. I want to make the longest side 2048. That's the secret to getting an image that looks amazing on Facebook. And that's the finished image right there. And I'm just going to file and save. And there you go. Saved. Now, when you upload to Facebook, you can upload larger than 2 megabytes. Hey guys, okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed my wet shaving photography 101 video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I will include links to all of the products that I used in today's video. And have a wonderful day and have an even better shave. Take care, my friends.